Hi everyone, welcome to our very first live at lunch. I am Mineksha Stewart and I run Cheerfully Given and I'm the founder of the Tent Peg Collective. And I wanted to create a weekly space where we check in and do something that is encouraging for business owners. And today we will kick off thinking about all things imposter syndrome. So if you are a business owner, then you might be joining us through the Tent Peg Collective, or you might be joining us on YouTube through our email list. You are so welcome here and it is awesome to have you. If you are just interested in imposter syndrome more generally, but you're not a business owner, then you're also totally welcome here. So hopefully it'll be helpful. And basically the format of these live at lunch will be a little bit of teaching, a few thoughts on different topics. So today we're talking about imposter syndrome, and next week we've got something else. I can't remember, I don't have it directly in front of me. Just give me 1 second and I can tell you. Next week is thinking about money as a creative Christian business owner, and then the week after we've got like social media and stuff. So basically they're all different topics, and today we're thinking a bit more about our internal leadership and maybe our thought life, but they're going to be ranging in practicality versus reflection and leadership. So yes, everyone feels this way exactly. So if you are watching from Facebook, I am streaming through something called StreamYard, which means I can see your comments, but I can't always see the name attached to them. So please do leave me comments if you have questions. I'd also love to hear who's with me, like where are you listening from? Are you a business owner? And if so, what do you do? So let's share a little bit, and you've heard a bit about me. I'd love to hear a bit about you. And as we come into the Q&A session as well, we want to make sure that things are relevant to you, and yeah, we can answer your questions and leave you feeling really confident that you're not alone in this. So I've got some slides. I'm going to give you a quick moment to type where you're based, where you're listening from, and then we can crack on with the slides, and we will go from there. So bear with me a second while I get this up. I just want to make sure I've got the right file. Here we go. And then we will go from there. Okay. So we've got people in the comments. Fee from Tent Peg Collective, hello, it's great to see you here, Fee. And then we've got someone who runs a dance school for the past 8 years as a full-time job. That is awesome. That sounds like a really fun way to spend your day, dancing, something that is a bit more active. I guess maybe if you're running the dance school, you're not doing as much active stuff. Hey, Nikki, great to see you. You're joining us from Kent. That is awesome. And Nikki's also part of the Tent Peg Collective, so it's great to see we've got some Tent Peg members repping here as well, and hopefully you guys will find this encouraging, and we can always debrief this in the Tent Peg Collective Facebook group as well. So well, let me pull out these slides and then we'll start from here. So I've just got a few slides really to share with you. They're not all sorry, I'm still here we go. So yes, you can see my screen, my little canvas slides. Here we go. So conversations on imposter syndrome. This is a taster of like a bigger webinar. So if you're interested in doing the longer webinar that's like 60 to 90 minutes long with a bit of Q&A at the end as well, feel free. It's also free to attend. It's just a bit more of a time commitment. So we're thinking today about conversations on imposter syndrome, but it's the light edition. So you might be joining us and thinking like, what even is imposter syndrome? I haven't heard of this before. So you might not have heard of it, but you are highly likely to have experienced it. So what exactly is imposter syndrome? So Wikipedia defines it as the psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. So this is something that a large proportion of people struggle with. And I have seen lots and lots of people who are crippled by these feelings of being a fraud and being an imposter, and, you know, doubting the fact that their accomplishments mean that they can do whatever it is that they're doing, whether it's something in church life, something in professional life, even something at home in your home life. And the easiest way to describe it in a visual way is the difference between your perception of yourself and your perception of other people. So if we look at it here, we often have how we perceive ourselves in one way, and then how others perceive us. And then the gap in between is this imposter gap, I call it. And the reason for this imposter gap is that we think that we are somehow so skilled at projecting a different version of ourselves out that we've managed to fool everyone into thinking we are something that we're not. So I'm going to just grab my notes to make sure that I don't miss anything while we've got these slides up, because I can't see both my notes and the slides at the same time because I don't have two screens. So here we go, back to this imposter gap. So basically we've got this gap between our public perception, the public perception that people have of us, and how we feel internally people might perceive us. But there are different studies that have shown that 70% of people experience feelings of imposter syndrome. So it's that idea of like, I'm a fraud, I don't deserve to be here. Maybe you've been to interviews in the past. I know that I have, where I feel like I've blagged the interview and they've only given me the job because I'm really good at selling myself. And there's always this doubt that we really deserve the things that we find, the situations that we find ourselves in, and there's someone else who's more qualified and more able to do it. And, you know, we shouldn't really be there. So there's been lots and lots of studies that have been done into this thing called imposter syndrome. And it's something that in the business space people talk about a lot, because it can really hold people back from setting up businesses, or from moving forward, or from having the confidence to be visible in their businesses as well. And so you tend to find that in the business space in particular, lots and lots of people are talking about imposter syndrome, but it is something that affects many people in all different professions, all different walks of life. And all of these studies have been done, but they haven't been able to really find a specific root cause and something that has actually explained the prevalence of this feeling of an imposter. So all of the solutions that are offered become very superficial. So if you're looking into like, how do I build confidence? How do I get over imposter syndrome? Lots of the time it'll be things like, you know, daily affirmations or positive self-talk. And they're things that, while they might be helpful, are actually quite superficial, because they're not addressing the root cause of imposter syndrome, because really nobody's been able to fully understand what exactly it is that causes us to feel this sense of being an imposter. So we've got this unrealistic view of both ourselves and of other people, because when we feel imposter syndrome, we think that we are less than, or that we have somehow fooled our way into a situation. But we also tend to think more of other people. So we tend to think other people are living up to the expectations that we fall short of. And actually, quite often they're also feeling the exact same things. They're also feeling like, you know, they shouldn't be there, or they haven't done enough. And, you know, they're experiencing the exact same things, but from the other side of the coin. So we have this unrealistic expectation of ourselves, where we set ourselves goals and standards that we want to meet. And then when we don't meet them, we're like, no, I'm such a failure. You know, there's all of these cycles that are going on that all feed into imposter syndrome as well. But we compare ourselves to a projection of other people that doesn't necessarily exist. So we just see the chaos that's going on under the surface of our own lives, and the chaos of us barely managing and juggling plates and doing things at the last minute. And we see a very thin veneer of order on the surface of other people's lives. And so we judge their entire existence by that thin veneer of order. And just in the same way as other people do that to us as well. So there's a huge amount of comparison that happens often with imposter syndrome. But there's a really good verse in Proverbs, and it is Proverbs 17, verse 28, and it says, even fools are thought wise if they keep silent. So I think that that is a really interesting insight into how we interact with other people, because other people, by keeping silent, might be thought wise, but actually under the surface, they might be fools. So when we think about this idea of perception and how we interact interact with people. We can see that the Bible teaches us that it's actually easy to give a veneer of wisdom and order, even if you're actually foolish inside as well. So I thought that was a really interesting Bible verse. So Paul Blackham is my spiritual director. He is the creates all the devotionals for the Tent Peg Collective as well. And he has spent a lot of time talking to me about imposter syndrome. And we have co-created a course where he's done lots of amazing video content on imposter syndrome. And one of the things that he talks about in that course is this idea that actually the whole of humanity are imposters. And that is what's at the root of us all feeling like we're imposters. It's because when we look at a verse like Psalm 8, for instance, where it's in Psalm 8 verses 5-8, we see you've made them a little lower than the angels and crowned them with glory and honor. You've made them rulers over the works of your hands. You put everything under their feet, all flocks and herds, the animals of the wild, the birds in the sky and the fish in the sea, and all that swim in the paths of the seas. So we were created for this incredible life with the living God, and we have fallen from that, and we live in, disconnected from the life of the living God. So we're aware of our weaknesses, our failings, our fragility, and the mess that comes with all of that. But to deal with the sense of imposter syndrome and to be able to be released from it and to walk in freedom without worrying about whether we're, who we are in relation to other people, we need to learn about our identity and how we fit into the reality of life and humanity. So we want to, as we think about this idea of overcoming imposter syndrome, really find the firm foundation of human identity and destiny. So when we think about this idea of the big picture of reality, and we think about this big story and how we fit into that, we can feel secure in that bigger story, understanding what life and identity is really about. So there's lots of ways that we can explore our identity as part of being Christians in Jesus, and that's maybe a lunchtime live at lunch for another day. But really understanding these deep issues of identity is something that we want to push into and understand who we are in Jesus if we want to really overcome imposter syndrome and be able to step into the work that the living God has called us to do without feeling like we were made for something and that we're always falling short. We do fall short, but we understand why, and we understand that in Jesus we have this future hope and this sure foundation for all of reality. So Jesus is the only thing that can get us through this syndrome. He's the only answer to our various syndromes and insecurities. And when we are able to rest and trust in him, we can be who we are designed to be. We can push forward with confidence. We can do things imperfectly, knowing that he is perfection and that we don't have to work for things in a way that demands this impossible standard. So there's just a few thoughts there for us as we're thinking about imposter syndrome today. And I thought I would also maybe share some of my own experiences with imposter syndrome as well. But before I do that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see if anyone's got any questions that they would like to ask. And let me just figure out how to stop sharing the screen now. There we go, stop screen. Awesome. So hey everyone, it's great to see you all. There's loads of comments that have come in while I've been chatting to you. Nice to see. So Dominique is here from Vienna. Amazing. Welcome, Dominique. Jill is here from Arabella and Alfie Designs. Great to see you, Jill. And lots of people have been on pause during the season, so you're not alone with that as well. Ruth is here. Ruth was part of our Firm Foundation retreat earlier in the year, and it's great to have you with us. And Natalia from Treasure the Truth. Hey, in Carrick Fergus to Nora. Judith, hello. Hi, Sarah. Great to see you as well. And there's lots of different people joining us. Here we go. So so we've got a question here, like why are you a fraud? I'm not saying I am a fraud. I'm saying I feel like a fraud sometimes. So just to reassure any of you who work with me, I'm definitely not a fraud, but I do feel that sometimes. So I work with a lot of quite big businesses. So obviously I run Cheerfully Given, but I work as a marketing freelancer, as a chief marketing officer. I teach search engine optimization to like senior marketing teams in places like University of the Arts London. I've worked with people like Jordan Rayner on their marketing strategy, and Jay Shetty and people like that as well. And I often find myself in a situation where I don't feel, as you know, the daughter of a kebab man from North England, I don't often feel like I deserve to be in the jobs that I find myself in sometimes. And I constantly struggle with that because there is a real sense of like, oh, I don't feel qualified, I don't feel equipped, there's probably other people who could do a better job of this than me. But when we are approaching our businesses, like, we are called and equipped in a particular way. And like, I do, you know, have been on a journey of marketing, you know, I've got lots of experience, lots of demonstrable results and things like that as well. So often the experience of imposter syndrome is very much in our emotions rather than in the facts that we find ourselves in. So when it comes to managing feelings of imposter syndrome, having a firm foundation in Jesus gives us an external point of truth. So whatever's going on in our emotions, however stormy and unsettled and uncertain we feel, we have an external point of truth where we can cling on to him as the rock of ages, the firm foundation, our refuge in all of the uncertainty of life. So when we're dealing with imposter syndrome, understanding that he is our firm foundation and the place that we can retreat to is important as well. But understanding as Christians that the whole of humanity and creation has fallen away from the living God helps us to understand that gap between where we are now and where God created us to be, where the living God created us to be. So if we were created to rule over all creation and we were made, we were made with the angels, and there's all of this incredible picture of creation that we've seen in Psalm 8 of who we were created to be. And then we think about actually what life looks like now in, you know, as we're disconnected from that life of God. That is really the root cause of imposter syndrome, because we're aware we're made for more, but we aren't able to access that unless we're found in Jesus. You know, that's why Jesus came. He gives us the life of God, and he gives us himself, and he pours himself out for us. So when we're looking for answers to the emotional experiences that we may have in business, to the insecurities, the feelings that we don't deserve to be here, which are common for so many people who are starting businesses or who are running businesses, we want to be really disciplined about our relationship with Jesus, about getting to know him better, about spending time with him, about delighting in him, and finding our identity in him rather than in the things that we're doing as well. And then the great thing is that when we are able to step out from that place of knowing Jesus, things like failure and success all have a completely different flavor, and we can just be much bolder in the way that we are in the world, because we know that whatever happens, we're safe in the arms of Jesus. So let me have a little look here. So Nora says the Passion Translation of Psalm 8 is a really helpful reference place. So that's amazing. And thank you for that. And then we've got Colossians 2:8 as well. So Colossians 2:8, let me just see if I can get that on the screen for people. Bear with me 1 second while I copy and paste that. So here we go. It's always a good verse. Bear with me a second. I'm just popping it in the comments so that I can put it on the screen, because yes, there we go. So there we go. So there we go. So this verse is Colossians 2 verse 8, and says, see to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human tradition and the elemental spiritual forces of this world rather than on Christ. And so that is why we are, you know, showing up as Christian business owners to talk about these topics from the point of view of life in Jesus, because the secular world has got all kinds of self-help and personal development judgment and, superficial responses where they're saying, here's how you can hack your performance and do better. But we know that as Christians, the answer to all of our problems is Jesus. And so when we are thinking about the hollow philosophy of the world and the deceptive philosophy that we see around us, we need to be firmly founded on Christ Jesus in order to have an answer for those things as well. So yes, we do use the Bible to help us always in the 10 Peg Collective, and my husband is a church leader, and we are very much focused on meeting Jesus in the Bible and using the Bible to help us as well. So that is great wisdom there. So Ruth has got a great comment here. I know it can be helpful to own the areas we realistically are weaker in, but I also know it isn't always appropriate to share this with others, especially how it can reflect on our business. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So that is an awesome question. I'm just making sure that you can still see me talking above this, and I don't know how to make the comment section a smaller view, but anyway, I'll figure that out as we go through these lunchtime lives. So with our strengths and weaknesses, that professional tension is completely understandable, especially if we're doing freelance work and things like that as well. And I think that as a culture, particularly depending on where you're watching from, but obviously I'm based in the UK. In Britain, we very much have a culture of knowing our place and of not thinking of ourselves as being too far above our station and things like that. And so there's one of the most unhelpful interview questions, I think, is what are your weaknesses? And I know I've been in settings in the past where people who've been making hiring decisions have not hired someone based on their weaknesses. But actually, we are not called to focus on our weaknesses. We are called in 1 Peter 4 verse 10, it says, each of you should serve one another as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. And basically with your own gifts, you should use your gifts to serve one another as stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So we are called to serve one another with the gifts that God has given us. So when we approach business in the light of our strengths, then we can step into the gifts that God has given us, but we can also know that actually we're weaker in some areas because we're imperfect, and that's completely fine. So the balance for me is that in business structure generally, I have people who help me with the things that I'm not as good at. So I'm not great with admin, so repetitive tasks and things that are more time-based. I need to make sure I've got reminders in place and things like that, so I don't lose track of time and end up thinking it's Tuesday when it's Friday. And so I've got things like that in place, but I've also got people who can help with the things that I might not always remember to do. So operations, I've got an amazing head of operations. I've got an executive assistant. So they help me, and they are part-time. So even though, we don't have a full-time team, there's still people in place who can pick up some of those things as well. So when you're taking on work as a freelancer, it's more important to understand where your weaknesses are so that you don't accept a project that is dependent on your weaknesses. So I've worked as a marketing contractor for a lot of years, and I do a lot of strategic work, which is often thinking quite big picture and how things connect with each other, how different channels work, and the overall approach to things. But I'm not going to ever be as good at the execution of things, because that is typically much more time dependent. So things like scheduling social media and stuff. If I take a project, I'm going to always make sure that there's someone to execute that, and I'm not going to say yes to a project that requires me to do a lot of implementation or execution tasks, because actually my skills are strategic. So Clifton Strengths Finders is a really helpful tool for that, and I have done that myself, and my top 5 strengths are all strategic, and I think strategic or relational basically, but none of them are execution focused. So Clifton Strengths Finder can be really helpful for that, and it can just help you develop wisdom and discernment as well when it comes to what are the gifts that God has given you, and how can you steward them well as well, because we're called to be stewards of not just things like money, but also of the gifts that we have got, and we want to make sure that we're able to use those and serve people with grace. And when we step into the gifts that we have and use those to serve people, we have a much bigger impact than if we spend all of our focus and energy wrestling with our weaknesses. So I would just encourage you to own your weaknesses and know that they don't define you at all. Your gifts are the thing that is going to impact the people around you. So here we go. We've got a few more questions. Lisa's here as an artist and tutor, and that's amazing there as well. I'm scrolling through people's questions now. I can't see everyone's name, so I think I've answered most questions because I've talked a bit about strategies to deal with imposter syndrome. So I think that some of the questions aren't necessarily coming up maybe, but do feel free to pop them in the comments. What was the name, please, for that? I will pop it in the comments afterwards as well. Oh, it's Clifton Strengths Finders. There we go. I can pop a link to it afterwards, but Clifton Strengths Finder. There we go. So it can't post to all destinations, but it's Clifton Strengths Finder. So no, I can't see. I can just see Facebook user. Sorry. If you want to re-pop your comment in, feel free. So it's called Clifton Strengths Finder for anyone who's interested in that. They have quite a lot of helpful resources on their site, just in terms of, you know, how your strengths apply to different things. But the test itself, you can get the book, and then you'll get a coupon for the test that makes the test basically $8 instead of $20 or something. But do check out the website, and there's information on there anyway. Amazing. So we're coming towards the end of our time. So I can't see that. This is all I can see is Facebook user. So I will go through to what do you prefer, your biblical quiz or Clifton? So they're different things. So the Christian business quiz that we created is designed to look at your stage in business and some of the common challenges that you might have based on your point of business. Clifton Strengths Finder is much more about your personal strengths and leadership style as well. So yes, I'll go back and make sure that people, I answer people's questions in the comments on the various platforms that you're on anyway. So even if I've not been able to answer you live, don't worry, I will come back and follow up if there is anything I've missed. So yes, hi, Sylvia. Great to have you here as well. Ruth has said that's so helpful. Team is so much on my mind, but to think about what projects it's sensible to take on right now, it's brilliant advice. I did Strengths Finders ages ago, but great reminder to go back and look it out again. Awesome. Do you have any workshops coming up? Yes, we do have a few different workshops. So we've got the Isaiah 54:2 business plan workshop, which is looking at how we can basically prepare our businesses for growth and step out in confidence in our purpose and our impact and what we're doing. And we also have got I think off the top of my head, I can't remember them, so I'm sorry. But basically, there are a few things coming out. So just keep an eye on the platforms that you're connecting with us on, and there'll be details coming up for those as well. And then we do have the Overcoming Imposter Syndrome course, which Paul delivered this content as part of our Firm Foundation retreat. But I have got a little £10 off coupon code if you wanted to do the full course. It's like a 2 hours worth of video, and then some practical things as well. And it really looks into people like Mary, Peter, Moses, Deborah in the Bible, and the cases of imposter syndrome in the Bible versus people who really stepped out in confidence and faith because they knew what God had called them to do as well. So that's there. You can check it out if you fancy it, but there's a little coupon there. So yes, so the workshops are at different times. So Sylvie, I will follow up with you on Facebook and pop a link to the calendar basically of when things are coming up, so that you can check that out. But for now, we have reached the top of the hour when it comes to Live at Lunch. I could talk to you guys about this kind of thing literally, all afternoon, but I want to make sure that I'm, respectful of your time as well. So we will be meeting here at 12:30 till 1 on a Thursday for Live at Lunch going forward every week. And as I mentioned, there will be different topics and different focuses every week. So next week, we're looking at the idea of making money as a Christian, and we'll be thinking about what we can do as Christians. Like, can we make money with confidence as Christians? The week after, we'll be thinking about social media. So we'll be thinking about some of the challenges of this for Christians, but also we'll be putting some practical tips in place as well to help you if you're running a business. So So thank you very much for joining me for this first ever live at lunch, and I will see you in the Facebook group if you're in the Christian Business Owners Facebook group, or I'll see you in the next live at lunch. So hope you have a good week, and thank you very much again for joining.